Shreyaha, he says, in life, all of us are faced with two paths, Shreyaha and Preyaha. Shreyaha means that which leads you to self-development and ultimately to self-realization. Preyaha is the path of the pleasant, where you follow what you like to do and devolve to the depths of degradation. So this choice you and I have, to choose to improve or choose to devolve. Evolution or devolution is our choice. If you choose the path of Shreyaha, then there are only two motivations that one has. That is Atmanaha Mokshartham and Jagat Hitaya. Atmanaha Mokshartham means liberation of the soul, to get to the state of self-realization or God realization. And in order to get there, Jagat Hitaya, to work for the welfare of the world. Not for my good, but for Loka Sangraha, for the welfare of the world. This is very important. We need to instill this in our hearts and souls. There is no place for selfish activity in the world. The moment you think of yourself, all thoughts of yourself, of your personal welfare are distractions. And all distractions are subtractions. They take away from your work. They make your work inefficient, unproductive. You fail. If you notice from your own life, those moments in your life are perfect, those actions in your life are perfect when you're totally focused on the action without any thought of yourself, without any thought of what is the reward for me. The moment you think of myself, what will people think of me? Will my action be appreciated or depreciated? The action goes. So, Arjuna belongs to that category where he's working for Shreyaha, he's interested in self-development. He's not interested in selfish motives. And that is why he makes it very clear to Krishna. He says, tell me one path by which I may get to that state. The rest of us are interested in Preyaha, unfortunately. So, having completed his question, now Krishna starts his answer in the next verse, verse 3.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha Lokesmin dvividha nishtha Pura prokta maya nagha Jnana yogena sankhyanam Karma yogena yoginam.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha, Krishna now speaks. He says, O Anagha. He addresses Arjuna as Anagha, which means sinless one. Since ancient times, the twofold path was given by me to this world. The path of knowledge for the contemplative and the path of action for the active. So, straight away he begins on a high note by addressing Arjuna as Anagha. Arjuna is in a state where he's broken down, he's not able to act, he's not able to perform his obligations, and obviously he's full of faults. And yet Krishna gives this tremendous boost to him by addressing him as Anagha, sinless one. How does that happen? When there is love and affection, when there is a feeling of oneness between two people, you might see the faults, but you identify with what is good in the person. You identify with the spirit. Krishna has reached the state of self-realization. So he sees only Atman, and Atman is sinless. Similarly, this is a clue to us. If you want to work with people, if you want to help people, if you want to get them to work with you, you need to identify and tap the person, contact the person at his or her strengths and help the person deploy his strength to work together, as a result of which the faults get marginalized. The faults don't come into the picture at all. But what we do, which is the reverse, is because we don't have a sense of oneness with people, we look at only the faults and then tease the person on the faults, keep harping on the faults. As a result, the person himself loses confidence. There's a negative relationship and he is not able to function properly. So Krishna starts off on a high by saying, "Oh Anagha, sinless one. Since ancient times, I've given a twofold path, the path of knowledge for the contemplative and the path of action for the active." It's like this. All of us are carrying with us desires in our inner personality. So, therefore, in life, there are three kinds of transactions that take place. The three transactions are, the world enters you, you receive stimuli from the world, and then these stimuli get to your mind and intellect, your inner personality, and at that level, there is a reaction between the stimulus that enters you and the desires that you already have. And depending on the quality of the stimulus and the quality of the desires, there is a reaction, and this reaction is then transmitted back into the world as responses or actions. So it's natural, therefore, that a person with many, many desires, when the stimulus enters, you can't prevent stimuli from entering you. The moment you wake up, open your eyes, the world is entering you. You see, you hear, taste, smell, touch, etc. That you can't avoid. But if you have many desires within you, what happens is, any and every stimulus that enters your system, you react to. And you respond to it. For instance, if you go home this evening and switch on the news, you have switched on the television to watch the news. But then there are these commercial breaks. And every ad that you see, any ad that you see an ad for a refrigerator. If you have a desire for a refrigerator, what happens? The stimulus enters you, there is a reaction, the response is, "Oh, I must buy a refrigerator." You see an ad for something else, you have a desire for it, there's a reaction, there's a response, you go out and buy it. This is what happens when you have many desires in you. What happens to a person who has less desires? Even you, the same person. You see an ad for a product, say for instance, holidays to Europe or Singapore. If you don't have a desire to go on a holiday, the stimulus will enter you. You're seeing the ad, you're hearing what's going on. But because you don't have a desire for it, there is no reaction whatsoever. The stimulus dies there within you, and there is no response back into the world. So, in life, in the world, there are, broadly speaking, two types of people. One who have many desires, and so therefore, when the stimuli from the world enter such a person, there are many reactions and many, many responses back into the world. Such a person is geared towards action because he's responding all the time. This category of person Krishna refers to as active. The other category are those with very few desires. So the stimuli from the world enter him. But because he has fewer desires, there are very few reactions and therefore very few responses. Such a person tends to be more contemplative, less active. Now the active person, the bulk of his personality is geared towards action. So when such a person turns spiritual, all that he can do is convert his actions into worship. A contemplative person is one who with very few actions, more often than not, he's analyzing, contemplating, introspecting, And therefore, such a person, if he turns to spirituality, he can only convert his contemplation to worship. So do you see the two distinct types of people and the two distinct paths that are prescribed for these people? You can't do anything different from your nature. You have to follow your nature. But within the pattern of your nature, you can change your attitude, and instead of working for selfish returns, you dedicate your actions to a higher goal, you become spiritual. The path of contemplation, the path of knowledge is given for those people who don't have that many desires. So to them, they need to take in knowledge, reflect over it, analyze it, and arrive at conclusions. So you find there are two distinct types of people. There are people who are research oriented. Such people are geared to do PhD research in labs, in their offices. And they're not responsive, they're not reactive to the world. They're not active. And there are others who are jumpy, jump at the slightest opportunity to act. And the brilliance of this knowledge is that wherever you are, whoever you are, whatever be your nature, there is a method by which you can convert your lifestyle, your life pattern into worship. This is what he's saying. Now, since Arjuna is a warrior, he obviously belongs to the active type of person. Yet, earlier in the Gita, he has turned around and categorically told Krishna, Krishna, let's get away from this battle. I don't want to act. Let's go to the Himalayas and meditate. So very subtly, Krishna is telling him that, look, you don't belong to that category. You don't belong to the contemplative type of person. And so therefore, what you need to follow is the path of action. This he said subtly in this verse. Later, he elaborates on it. So, two distinct types of people. And for the active people, later he presents a unique methodology by which you continue to perform actions, but you convert that action, you invest in action, and you reap the benefits of inaction. Means you reap the benefits of contemplation. So karma yoga is the method by which you perform actions. Because you can't help it, you're active, you have to perform actions. But the attitude, the method by which you perform actions gets you to the path of contemplation, knowledge. It's a brilliant method. This is what modern management needs to learn. What karma yoga is all about is to keep the mind serene, to keep the mind calm, keep the mind unperturbed. And it is out of this calm, serene mind that brilliant, dynamic, productive, perfect actions emerge. We are just the opposite. Our minds are agitated because of selfish desires. When the mind is agitated, you're not able to perform actions properly. You forget one thing. You don't do something properly. Our life is full of mistakes. And these mistakes occur because the mind is not calm. When modern management comes up or is faced with inefficiency in action, what do? They give you more knowledge. They say, okay, you're not good at performing action, so let me give you a little more knowledge. Maybe with that knowledge you'll be able to perform action. But it is not that you don't have knowledge. You don't have a calm mind which can translate the knowledge into action. So what you need is a method by which you can calm your mind so that you can access the knowledge that you already have and perform actions. All of us have knowledge. It's not the knowledge that we need. What we need is serenity of mind. And this serenity of mind can come only when you dedicate your actions to something higher. And this is what he says, the rest of the verses. For now we continue with verse 4.
न कर्मणामनारम्भात् नैष्कर्म्यं पुरुषोऽश्नुते न च सन्न्यसनादेव सिद्धिं समधिगच्छति.
The state of perfection has been described as naishkarmyam. Naishkarmyam means actionlessness. But we need to understand what he means by naishkarmya. Naishkarmya does not mean a person who ceases to act. You have to go back and understand where that action springs from. When you perform action, where does that come from? Desire. A musician sings because he has a desire to sing. An actor acts because he has a desire to act. A musician will not act, an actor will not sing. So where does your action come from? Anybody's action. It comes from a desire. Where does the desire come from? A thought. Where does the thought come from? Vasana. Vasana is described, it's difficult to understand vasana because it's subtle. So vasana is described as unmanifest desire. Unmanifest desire. Vasana is also described as an inherent inclination towards a particular line of action, or towards a particular thing. Tendency. Inborn tendencies we're born with. So these are called vasanas. The vasana manifests when there is a conducive environment as a thought. This thought in your intellect, when you continuously think, when you invest in that thought further, it forms a stream of thoughts, many thoughts going from you towards a particular thing in the world, particular action, particular activity. And that is called desire. And that desire, when it reaches its critical point, manifests as action. So, he has traced back action to its very root. Where does the action come from? Action comes from desire in the mind. Where does the desire come from? Desire comes from thought in the intellect. Where does the thought come from? Thought comes from a vasana. So, the state of perfection or self-realization or God-realization is described as the state of vasana-lessness. Vasana is the impurity that obscures yourself, your spirit, as we saw, the mask which covers you. When you don't have vasanas, the state of vasana-lessness means the state of thoughtlessness, desirelessness, actionlessness. So therefore, when he says one does not attain naishkarmyam, actionlessness, what does he mean? He means vasanalessness. He means the state of perfection. So he says, you do not get to the state of perfection by simply stopping action. There are two kinds of actions you perform. One is actions that you are already performing. You can't renounce them. He's saying, nor do you obtain that state of perfection by just renouncing the actions that you are already performing. Nor do you reach that state by not initiating fresh actions, new actions. In this verse, he's simply saying that as long as the fuel of vasanas is there, it will manifest as thought in the intellect, desire in the mind, and action at the body level. When you are full of desires and vasanas, by merely stopping actions, you don't get to that state. It's like You have bacteria in your system is full of infection. And if you just take symptomatic relief to, for instance, that the infection manifests as fever. By merely taking crocin, you don't get rid of the infection. Ask any doctor. You have to trace it back to the bacterium that is causing the symptoms, one of which is fever. When you eradicate the bacteria, even if you don't take crocin, the fever will automatically go. Merely by taking crocin, you're not going to get rid of your infection. That's what he's saying here. So the infection, the impurity in your system is vasana. You have to have some plan, some program of eradicating the vasanas. Only then the thoughts will go, desires will go, actions will go. And even then, the state of perfection is not that of an inactive person. All that drops is desire-ridden selfish actions drop. What takes over is obligatory actions. Every one of us, as long as we are living, we receive so much in life from nature, from that divine power, that one needs to be aware of what we have received in life, all the blessings that have been bestowed on us without our having asked for it, without our having acknowledged it, without our so much as being aware of it. And a person, a refined person, a noble person, is one who is aware of the gifts that have been bestowed on him and acts in a spirit of thanksgiving. Thanksgiving has just passed, right? Last week. The only difference is, in Western society, in America, Thanksgiving comes only once a year. In the Indian tradition, Thanksgiving happens every day, every action, every moment of our life. If you're acutely aware of all that you've received in life and you act in the field of your talent, only to pay back, as a token of wanting to pay back. You can't really pay back that divine power for anything. But if you're aware of it and you offer it as your contribution, your little bit, as thanksgiving, that is what we're talking about. Perform obligatory actions. And he continues to talk to us in greater detail about obligatory actions later. But here he is merely saying that you cannot reach that state of perfection by merely renouncing present actions or by not initiating fresh actions. People in India, we have completely misunderstood the Gita and believe that if you are turned to spirituality, the first thing you have to do is give up things. Give up action, give up family, give up job, give up your livelihood. I don't know what you're supposed to do. It's not life denying, it's life enabling. The Gita enables you to enjoy life. The Gita enables you to obtain more things of the world. The Gita enables you to harness the power of your ideal components. Each one of us is functioning just at the superficial level. The deeper layers of your personality, the more powerful components within your personality lie completely unknown. That power you need to tap. You need to harness. And that's what it's all about. 5.
नहि कश्चित् क्षणमपि जातु तिष्ठत्य कर्मकृत् कार्यते ह्यवशः कर्म सर्वप्रकृतिजैर्गुणैः.
As long as you're living in this world, you can't remain for a split second without activity. He's emphasizing this. All are helplessly compelled to act by the gunas, qualities, born of Prakriti, nature. So, What he's saying here is that you cannot choose to remain inactive. And yet Arjuna in the Gita is actually proposing to Krishna that let's go, let's give up this action, let's not act. So what he's saying here is you can't stop action, because each person, every living being is compelled to act, forced to act according to his or her gunas, qualities born of nature. In this verse he introduces one of the most